Have you ever noticed how the people who seem most at peace are often the ones who say the least? While everyone around them is desperately broadcasting their every thought, achievement, and breakfast choice to the world, they move through life with a quiet confidence that speaks louder than any social media post ever could. If you have ever felt exhausted by the constant pressure to perform your life online, if you have ever wondered why sharing everything feels so empty, you are about to discover something that the ancient Taoists understood thousands of years ago. There is profound power in silence, and your reluctance to overshare might actually be wisdom disguising itself as social awkwardness. In our hyper-connected world, silence has become almost extinct. We live in an age where not posting something is seen as suspicious, where silence is interpreted as having nothing interesting to say, where the absence of digital noise is somehow equated with the absence of a meaningful life. But what if we have got it completely backwards? What if the most profound lives are lived quietly, away from the spotlight? In harmony with principles that predate our digital addiction by thousands of years, Taoism teaches us that the most powerful actions often appear as non-actions, that the strongest positions can look like yielding, and that true wisdom rarely announces itself with fanfare. The Tao Te Ching, that ancient text that has guided seekers for millennia, opens with the revolutionary idea that the day that can be spoken is not the eternal day. In other words, the deepest truths cannot be captured in words, let alone in a carefully curated Instagram post or a witty tweet designed to accumulate likes. When you feel that strange resistance to sharing your personal victories, your intimate thoughts, your daily experiences with the digital crowd, you are not being antisocial or missing out on modern life. You are tapping into an ancient understanding that some things are too sacred, too personal, too real to be reduced to content. The Taoist sage Lao Tzu spoke of the wise person who acts without forcing, leads without dominating, and teaches without lecturing. In our time, this translates to living without performing, achieving without announcing, and finding joy without broadcasting it to the world for validation. Think about the last time you experienced something truly meaningful. Maybe it was a moment of clarity during a walk in nature, a deep conversation with someone you love, or a quiet realization about yourself that shifted something fundamental inside you. What was your first impulse? If you are like most people today, a part of you probably thought about how to share this experience, how to capture it in words or images that others could consume and respond to. But notice what happens in that moment of translation from experience to content. Something gets lost, something essential gets flattened, something authentic becomes performed. One of the most liberating concepts in Taoism is Wu Wei, often translated as non-action or effortless action. But Wu Wei is not about being passive or lazy. It is about aligning yourself so perfectly with the natural flow of things that your actions become as spontaneous and appropriate as a river flowing downhill. In our context, this means living your life so fully and authentically that you do not need to document it for others to believe in its reality. Your life becomes its own proof, your peace becomes its own advertisement, your contentment becomes its own influence. Consider how much energy you spend crafting the perfect post, choosing the right photo, writing the caption that strikes the perfect balance between humble and impressive, casual and meaningful. Then consider how much additional energy goes into monitoring the responses, measuring your worth by the number of reactions, adjusting your self-perception based on how others receive your carefully presented version of yourself. The Taoists would see this as swimming upstream, fighting against the natural current of authentic living. But there is something even deeper happening when you choose silence over sharing. You are practicing what Taoists call returning to the source. Instead of dispersing your energy outward in search of external validation, you are turning inward toward the well of contentment that exists within you. Every time you experience joy without immediately reaching for your phone to capture it, you are strengthening your ability to be present with your own life. Every time you achieve something without announcing it, you are practicing the art of intrinsic motivation. Every time you feel love or gratitude without performing it for an audience, you are deepening your connection to the authentic experience itself. The ancient Taoists understood that the ego has an insatiable hunger for recognition, and that feeding this hunger only makes it stronger. Social media has created the perfect feeding ground for ego, a place where every moment can be turned into an opportunity for external validation. But what happens when you step away from this constant cycle of performing and measuring? Something remarkable begins to occur. You start living for the experience itself rather than for the story you will tell about the experience. You start making choices based on what feels right to you, rather than what will look good to others. You start finding joy in the present moment, instead of constantly preparing the next moment for public consumption. Let's talk about the practical wisdom of silence in your daily life. When you accomplish something meaningful at work, instead of immediately posting about your achievement, you sit with the satisfaction of a job well done. You let the feeling settle into your bones. You notice how success feels when it is not immediately shared and measured. When you have a beautiful experience in nature, instead of trying to capture the perfect photo, you let your eyes be the camera. You let your memory be the storage device. You let your heart be the social media platform where this beauty gets shared with your future self. 2. There is profound wisdom in what Taoists call the uncarved block. The state of natural simplicity before it gets shaped by social expectations and external pressures. Your authentic self exists in this uncarved state, but every time you translate your experience into content for others, you are carving away a little bit of that natural authenticity. You are shaping yourself to fit the expectations and appetites of your audience rather than allowing yourself to remain in your natural state. When you resist the urge to share everything, you are protecting this uncarved block of your authentic self. You are saying that your life has value beyond its entertainment or inspirational potential for others. You are declaring that some experiences are too sacred to be turned into content, too personal to be offered up for public consumption, too real to be reduced to captions and hashtags. This does not mean becoming a hermit or cutting yourself off from meaningful connection with others. The Taoist path is not about isolation. It is about authentic relationship. But there is a vast difference between genuine sharing that deepens connection and performative sharing that seeks validation. When you share from a place of authentic overflow rather than from a place of need, your words carry a different weight. Your presence has a different quality. Think about the people in your life who seem most centered, most at peace, most genuinely content. How much of their inner world do they broadcast to the internet? Probably not very much. They have learned that the most profound satisfaction comes not from external recognition, but from internal alignment. They have discovered that the deepest connections happen not through public performance, but through private presence. 3. The Taoist principle of yielding teaches us that sometimes the strongest response is no response. That sometimes the most powerful action is non-action. In our culture of constant reaction, constant commenting, constant sharing of opinions and experiences, choosing silence becomes a radical act. It becomes a way of saying that you do not need to have an opinion about everything, that you do not need to document everything, that you do not need to be constantly available for public consumption. This yielding is not about being passive or disconnected. It is about being so connected to your own center that you do not get pulled into every current of social opinion and digital noise. It is about being so secure in your own experience that you do not need constant external confirmation of its validity. It is about being so present with your own life that you do not feel compelled to constantly translate it for others. When you practice this kind of yielding, something interesting happens to your relationships. The people who are drawn to you are drawn to your authentic presence rather than to your curated image. The connections you make are based on genuine resonance rather than on shared performance anxiety. The love you receive is for who you actually are rather than for who you have convinced others you might be. 4. There is something Taoists call returning to the root. And in our context, this means returning to the simple joy of living for its own sake rather than for the story you will tell about it afterward. When you eat a delicious meal, you taste it fully instead of photographing it. When you have a meaningful conversation, you listen completely instead of planning how you will summarize it later. When you witness something beautiful, you receive it fully instead of immediately trying to capture and share it. This returning to the root is like remembering how to be a child again. How to experience wonder without immediately reaching for adult tools of documentation and analysis. Children do not experience a sunset and immediately think about how to share it with others. They are completely absorbed in the colors, the feeling, the moment itself. They are naturally Taoist in their approach to experience. But somewhere along the way, many of us learned that experiences are not quite real until they have been witnessed and validated by others. We learned that achievements do not quite count until they have been announced and celebrated publicly. We learned that our lives are not quite meaningful until they have been turned into content for others to consume. The Taoist path invites us to unlearn these painful lessons and return to the natural state where life is meaningful simply because we are living it. Have you ever noticed how some of your most profound moments of happiness or peace have come when you were completely disconnected from the need to share them? Maybe you were watching the rain, having a quiet moment with a loved one, feeling grateful for something simple, or experiencing a moment of clarity about your life. In these moments, you were practicing Taoism without knowing it. You were living in harmony with the natural flow of experience, receiving life fully without immediately trying to convert it into something else. 5. The concept of inner alchemy in Taoism teaches us that the most important transformations happen in silence, away from the watching eyes of others. When you are constantly performing your life for an audience, you are dispersing the energy that could be used for actual growth and development. Every moment spent crafting the perfect post is a moment not spent in genuine self-reflection. Every bit of energy used to maintain your public image is energy not available for authentic self-improvement. But when you step away from the constant need to document and share, you create space for real inner work. You can face your shadows without worrying about how they will look to others. You can make mistakes without having to manage the public relations aspects of those mistakes. You can grow and change without having to constantly update your followers about your progress or justify your evolution to people who knew you in a previous version of yourself. This inner alchemy happens naturally when you give it space and privacy. Like a seed that grows best in the darkness of soil, your authentic self develops best away from the harsh light of constant public scrutiny. The ancient Taoists knew that transformation requires a kind of sacred privacy, a protected space where change can happen at its own pace without external pressure or judgment. 6. There is profound wisdom in what Taoists call empty mind. Not empty in the sense of vacancy, but empty in the sense of being uncluttered by unnecessary thoughts, judgments, and mental noise. In our digital age, our minds are constantly cluttered with information about what everyone else is doing, thinking, feeling, and experiencing. We carry around a constant stream of other people's highlight reels, opinions, and performances, leaving little room for our own authentic thoughts and feelings to emerge. When you choose not to constantly consume and contribute to this digital noise, you are practicing empty mind. You are creating space for your own wisdom to emerge, for your own insights to surface, for your own authentic voice to develop. You are allowing your mind to return to its natural state of clarity and peace, rather than keeping it perpetually agitated by the need to process and respond to endless streams of information. This empty mind is not about becoming disconnected from the world, but about being so connected to your own center that you can engage with the world from a place of choice rather than compulsion. You can choose which voices to let in, which conversations to join, which content to consume based on what serves your actual growth rather than what feeds your ego or anxiety. 7. The Taoist understanding of natural timing teaches us that everything has its own season, its own appropriate moment for emergence and expression. In nature, flowers do not bloom in winter trying to impress other flowers. Trees do not shed their leaves in spring to get attention. Rivers do not announce their destination to the landscape they flow through. Everything moves according to its own inner timing, its own natural rhythm. But social media creates an artificial urgency around sharing, a sense that if you do not post about something immediately, the moment is lost. This artificial timing disconnects you from your own natural rhythms and creates a kind of chronic stress about being current, relevant, and visible. The Taoist path invites you to return to your own natural timing, to share when sharing feels authentic and meaningful rather than when algorithms and social pressure suggest you should. Sometimes the most appropriate response to an experience is years of silence before you understand it well enough to speak about it meaningfully. Sometimes the most honest response to an achievement is private gratitude rather than public celebration. Sometimes the most wise response to a beautiful moment is simply receiving it fully without any need to translate it for others. As we move deeper into this exploration, take a moment to notice how your body feels when you imagine a life lived more quietly, more privately, more in harmony with your own natural rhythms, rather than with the artificial rhythms of social media. Do you notice a sense of relief? A feeling of coming home to yourself? This is your inner Taoist responding to the possibility of returning to a more natural way of being. The truth is that you have never needed to post anything to prove that your life is meaningful. Your life is meaningful because you are living it, because consciousness is moving through you, because love and loss and joy and growth are happening in and through your experience, whether anyone else witnesses it or not. The sunset is beautiful, whether you photograph it or not. The conversation is meaningful, whether you quote it online or not. The achievement is valuable, whether you announce it or not. 8. Let's explore what Taoists call spontaneous action. Action that arises naturally from your authentic self, rather than from external pressure or expectation. When you are constantly thinking about how to present your life to others, your actions become calculated and performed rather than spontaneous and authentic. You start living for the content rather than living for the experience. You start choosing activities based on how they will look rather than how they feel. But when you step away from the constant documentation of your life, something beautiful happens. Your actions become more spontaneous, more authentic, more aligned with your actual desires and values. You start choosing activities because they genuinely interest you rather than because they will make good content. You start having conversations because you want to connect rather than because you want material to share later. You start living your life because it is your life rather than because it might inspire or entertain others. This spontaneity is one of the hallmarks of the Taoist way. Like water flowing downhill, finding the most natural path without forcing or struggling. Your life starts to flow more naturally when it is not constantly being interrupted by the need to document and share. You start responding to opportunities and challenges from your authentic self, rather than from your performed self. 9. There is something called the pathless path in Taoism, the understanding that the deepest wisdom cannot be captured in rules or systems, but must be lived and experienced directly. Social media creates the illusion that wisdom can be packaged and shared, that profound insights can be reduced to inspirational quotes, that deep understanding can be transmitted through posts and comments. But the Taoist knows that real wisdom is pathless, that it cannot be captured in content, but must be lived in silence and solitude. When you resist the urge to constantly share your insights and realizations, you are honoring this pathless nature of real wisdom. You are acknowledging that some understanding is too subtle, too personal, too alive to be reduced to shareable content. You are protecting the sacred space where real learning happens, the quiet space where wisdom emerges naturally rather than being forced into public performance. This does not mean hoarding your wisdom or being selfish with your insights. It means allowing wisdom to mature in silence before it is ready to be shared, like wine aging in darkness before it is ready to be opened. It means trusting that when the time is right, when the sharing feels authentic and helpful rather than performed and ego-driven, the right words will come and find the right audience naturally. 10. The final insight we explore is what Taoists call returning home. The understanding that everything you have been seeking through external validation and social recognition already exists within you. The peace you are looking for, the satisfaction you are craving, the sense of being seen and understood that you hope to find through sharing your life online. All of this is available to you right now in the silence of your own presence. When you stop looking outside yourself for proof that your life is valuable, when you stop seeking external confirmation that your experiences are meaningful, when you stop needing others to witness your joy for it to feel real, you discover that you have been carrying the very thing you were seeking all along. You discover that your life is inherently meaningful, that your experiences are naturally valuable, that your presence is automatically significant, regardless of who notices or acknowledges it. This returning home is perhaps the most radical act possible in our attention economy. It is the declaration that you are enough, that your life is enough, that your quiet existence is enough without constantly broadcasting its worth to others. It is the deep recognition that the most profound satisfaction comes not from external applause, but from internal alignment, not from public recognition, but from private peace. As we reach the end of this exploration, notice that nothing about your life has changed except perhaps your perspective on its inherent value. You are the same person you were when you started reading, but maybe now you can see that person with more compassionate eyes. Maybe now you can recognize that your reluctance to overshare is not a social failing but an authentic wisdom. Maybe now you can appreciate that your preference for privacy is not antisocial behavior but a deep understanding of what makes life truly meaningful. The Taoists were right thousands of years ago, and they are still right today. The deepest truths cannot be captured in words. The most profound satisfaction comes from internal alignment rather than external recognition. The strongest position is often the position of yielding. The most powerful action is sometimes non-action, and the most authentic life is often the quietest life, lived in harmony with natural rhythms rather than artificial pressures. You have never needed to post anything to prove that your life is meaningful, because your life is meaningful by its very nature. You have never needed to document your experiences to make them real, because your experiences are real whether anyone else witnesses them or not. You have never needed to perform your authenticity, because authenticity, by definition, cannot be performed. If this exploration has resonated with something deep inside you, if it has reminded you of a way of being that feels more natural and peaceful than the constant performance of modern digital life, consider supporting this channel by subscribing and sharing these ideas with others who might benefit from remembering that the most profound life is often the quietest life. Together, we can create a community of people who choose presence over performance, authenticity over approval, and the ancient wisdom of silence over the modern addiction to noise.